Welcome to the channel, Reluctant Men. For those of you that are new, my name is Vitaly. Today, just wanted to jump into this conversation. I've been watching some of the videos on YouTube of Perez Hilton. Most of you probably know who that is, and I've been watching for a bit, and I've been a bit surprised. Although I have to say, I've had a bunch of these surprises. So when I think about Russell Brand, and I can't think of anybody else right at the top of my head right now, but there's been others who, like if you asked me years ago, these are, not people that I would have thought that I would hear talking about God or talking about the things of God. So Perez Hilton, if you've been watching or if you've seen, is expressing a faith in God. He's professing that God saved him after a very significant health struggle to where he almost died, and God revealed himself and saved him. So I wanted to just respond to this and say a couple of things that I think is important to say, okay? So I think we as believers have to be careful in how we respond to this, because I can just see this, right? Like, well, what he needs to do is da 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 da, and we have all kinds of things that we can kind of come up with and throw out there. And so, hey, he needs to stop saying queen. He needs to get baptized. He needs to attend the right kind of church. He needs to stop his lifestyle and whatever else we deem necessary. So instead, I would encourage you to stop any and all of this and stop even those thoughts. Here's why, right? I would encourage you to pray for him. I would encourage you to place that in God's hands and to place it in God's care, right? If God has saved him, as he is claiming, God can mold him into who God intends for him to be, right? We don't have to be the ones to come alongside and start trying to correct all the little rough edges and try to really work, him into the type of Christian that we think he ought to be. But this is something that we need to talk about because, first of all, God doesn't need any of us, okay? Let me just pause for effect here because I think it's really important for us to understand that God doesn't need us in this work. Jesus stopped Saul on his way to Damascus without a human being coming alongside. Now, after he stopped him, he used a human being to help bring Paul into Paul, right? Saul to Paul, right? He was that changed. So my point is, if Perez is changed, and he claims he has put out a bunch of videos apologizing for his previous behavior, apologizing to people who he has hurt with his hurtful rhetoric before. So those are all signs to me that his repentance, his conversion is real. And yet he's still saying a bunch of things, and he's saying about things he disagrees with the Bible, and I get that. And I think that isn't as important as praying for him and praying that God would, in time, lead him to where he needs to be. So Jesus can save Perez without any of us being involved and not necessarily using us to bring someone like him to salvation, right? There are many testimonies now about individuals in Iran having visions and having dreams of Jesus and coming to a saving faith through those visions without an intervention of someone who is actually witnessing to one of these. And think about how exciting that is and how complicated it is, because in a country where they can't freely worship, they've got to somehow find these secret cells of Christians with whom they can actually come together and worship and break bread and be able to be in fellowship with those people. So listen, we get to be a part of the work that God is doing, but if any of you or any of us think that God is dependent on us to accomplish his will, it's just sad because God can do it without any of us. And it's such a great, amazing thing that we get to be a part of his work and we get to be a part of the mission that he is doing in humanity. So, and if you think of that specific denomination is the right one, you just need to stop that. You need to humble yourself and trust God. Trust a God who is great, who will accomplish his will regardless of you and regardless of me, right? Wherever we are and whatever we think is the right thing. And it's interesting because the older I've gotten, the more, that realization that the more I know, the more I realize how much I actually don't know and how little I've known and how little I already had. And it's like just that infinite knowledge of God that, the more you know, the more you realize, man, I still don't know a whole lot. So let us get off our high horses with that and then humbly submit and humbly seek God and ask him to teach us what we all don't already know, right? So just ask God to reveal to us what we still don't know. Because if you think that you are holy, or if you think you've got it figured out, or you think you are walking your life in such a way that you are an example to all, I would say to you, go and read Job, okay? Go and read Job, and it's interesting to see. God never really corrects Job or says, Job, you did these things wrong. But it is very, very powerful to see what happens and the idea that Job professes his righteousness before God. And yet, eventually, what he ends up doing because of what he didn't know and what he didn't understand when he was professing that he was righteous. So be careful about your profession of righteousness around other people and projecting all these things that all these people should be doing to be like you and to be like me and to be all those things. But humility in the sight of God. So I would say this: love those around you, love the people around you, pray for them. Trust God to work all things out in his time. So this time, I just thought I should comment because he's such a well-known, and like when you see someone like that professing faith in God, it certainly pauses everybody. It paused me. It made me watch a few of his videos, which I would have never watched before, right? Just knowing who he was. And so it made me think about that because we as Christians sometimes really want to come in really quick and we want to, inform and update and change lots of things. And I think we need to let God and we need to pray for, and then stop judging people around us and love them. So let us have a heart like Jesus. I just want to finish on really quick. I want to read this passage from John 8:3. Familiar passage for most of you, I'm sure. The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and placing her in the midst, they said to him, Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now the law of Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say? This they said to test him, that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger in the ground. And as they continued to ask him, he stood up and said to them, Let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at her. And once more he bent down and wrote on the ground. But when they heard it, they went away one by one, beginning with the older ones. And Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus stood up and said to her, Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? She said, No one, Lord. And Jesus said, Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on sin no more. It's a very interesting statement because nowhere in this process does Jesus dispute what the group said, nor the woman. She doesn't dispute or profess her innocence, right? She is um, she is going along with whatever this is going to play out as, right? Which says to me that whatever they're charging her with, she's guilty of. And yet, Jesus says to her, "Neither do I condemn you, from now on, sin no more." It's a very powerful statement, right? Because how could he not condemn her if this was actually true, right? I think it's such a powerful example to us as Christians, not to point fingers at others, but first look in here. And I don't know, Jesus was drawing something on the ground. Maybe he was writing individual sins. I've heard many interpretations. The point is, the Bible doesn't tell us, but he tells them, "First of you that is without sin, go ahead and start. Take the first stone and throw it." And then starting with the older ones, they've started to kind of back up and disappear. Why? Well, because again, the longer you live, the more you realize that none of your own holiness, none of the stuff that we consider good, none of the stuff that we consider as like worthy, like if you really look at it, none of it is. And if you assign yourself this self-righteous attitude, like you've arrived and you somehow are so much better than everybody because you do these things, it's a sad place that you're at, because again, you've put yourself in a high seat where you want to judge everybody around you, and whatever standard you're using, right? Because even within Christendom, there's so many variations of who sees what and who thinks what, and right, wrong, and not that different than it was with the Pharisees. So it's powerful when we see Jesus say, "Neither do I condemn you, and from now on sin no more." He is not telling her to continue living the way she lived up until now. He is telling her to not sin anymore, but he didn't condemn her. So I will encourage all of us, let's not condemn, but let's love and pray for those around us, including for Perez, who has come out, and I am concerned that he is going to get a lot of painful comments from people that profess to be children of God and profess to be Christians because of some of these kinds of things. Instead of loving him and praying that God would lead him and slowly sanctify him and bring him to where he is honoring God with how he lives, right? Because if we look at each of us, and the truth is, most of us have more that we won't allow people to see, whereas somebody like him might be much more open and talk about some of those things. And so, yeah, let's love people. Let's not condemn them. Let's love them, and let's pray and ask God to continue to change them. Hope this helped. Hope this challenged you. Leave some comments and let me know what you think. Take care.